Hello, fellow Merconians. Wow, don't we have a lot to talk about today? If you haven't seen, Uprising 1.4 will be released on September the 3rd, and it's going to include quite a lot of stuff. And just at a sort of point where my interest in the game was sort of fading away a little bit through the lack of information or communication, I think we've just suddenly been inundated with quite a lot of information and a lot of details about what's coming up in 1.4, and it's got me excited about the game again, which is wicked. So let's so let's kick off and see what we've got. I'll try and list everything. I'm sure I'm going to forget something, which is good because there is quite a lot of information to go through here and quite a lot happening at the moment. So let's start off with the armor changes that's happening to the armor modules. These are the armor plates and the ferroscale plates. They're being adjusted. They're getting buff. They're getting more of an HP bonus. So I think sort of 20 to 30 extra HP for each one. And the movement penalties are being reduced. So the heavies out there and the Galentes are going to love that. It's going to add a little bit more buff to their suit. And it's going to give them a lot more movement speed as well. So I think that's tying it in line with the kind of shield tanking, trying to even it up a little bit. I think they're good to do what they've done rather than go a bit too far and make it, the same as shield, because they do have to be different. They have to have different penalties. I think that they're going to also adjust a sort of negative penalty to the shields as well. Wasn't too sure whether that was to do with the shield recharging or something else, but they're going to sort of bring it in line so that the shields also have a slight negative effect, so that stacking those up adds the same as a kind of movement penalty, whereas the shields will have a different penalty, and that's good. They're going to be bringing corporation tax into the game. Now, for casual players and non-EVE players, I think you might be a little bit worried about what this means, but it is a positive move, because if you join a corporation, you're part of that corporation, and obviously the corporation might want to do things like planetary conquest and other such stuff to provide tanks and fits for its members for planetary conquest battles. So having a corporation tax means that they won't have to do donations, which is a little bit of a hassle, and everyone donates different amounts and they might not feel that they're getting their donations worth from doing it. So this way, everyone in the corp, if you're in that corp, you're invested in the corp and you pay a small amount. I think around sort of 5 to 10% would be fair, that gets taken away from your earnings for each game and put into the corporation account to use for planetary conquest or other such endeavours. It works really well in EVE, and I can remember a few years ago was in a corporation, and we used to do a thing where sort of once a week we'd all log on and we'd have like a 50% or 100% corp tax day, and that would be for that day. We would increase the tax to 50%, and everyone would go out and mission and try and get as much ISK as possible for the corp wallet so that everyone can use it. So if you're a member in a corporation and then you see that 5 to 10% of your earnings of each match that you play get taken away into the corporation wallet, don't see this as a negative thing. Remember, you're part of that corporation, and that corporation's got your back. They're going to invest that ISK, hopefully wisely, and not just run off with it all, but that's the kind of faith that you've got to have in your CEO and directors to lead your corp in a good direction and use that ISK wisely. Now, a little bit off of the dev blog for 1.4, but there was a community spotlight for a dust fitting tool that is absolutely amazing. The guy's done a great job at this, and it's really easy to use, and the interface looks really good, and the way that it's laid out is really very clever. So I just thought I'd mention that, and you should go and have a look at it. Hydraslave or Hydraslav, not quite sure how he'd want that pronounced, but he's done really good, and I'll definitely put a link in the bottom so that you can go and check that out if you haven't already. It's really useful. You can put in all your skills and statistics and what you've got and what you want to fit and how you're going to fit it before even spending a penny and trying it out and making sure that it fits. You can also put in what skills you're going to get, how you're going to, when you might get them, so that you know what fit you're working towards, your ultimate fit, and where you need to put the skill points to get that. So definitely have a look at that. Now, I can imagine a pool of devs sat around asking each other, how are we going to get people to log in each day? How are we going to get them to play this game a little bit more, and what incentive can we give them. So they've given us a new section, which is recent updates, which will also show, I think, unread mail, what sort of skill points you've got, and unallocated. But the main part of this seems to be the daily active bonus. So each day you log in, you're going to get 3,000 skill points just for logging in. And then the next day, if you log in, you're going to get 3,500, and then the next day 4,000. So if you log in for 7 days consecutively, you're going to get 6,000 skill points just for logging in each day. If you miss a day, then I think it's going to revert back to the beginning and you'll just get 3,000. So it's that incentive is really there to sort of keep you logging in each day and keep you playing the game and having a look at what's happening in the updates, see what's happening in the game, and get extra skill points at the same time, which anything to get people playing the game and involved in it a little bit more and logging in each day is obviously good for the game. I think this is a screen that is also going to be developed a lot in the future, so it's not only will it track your progression, but it's going to further on down the line, it's going to really open up into what's happening in the game, with lots of things updating you and keeping you on your toes about what's happening and where it's happening and when it's happening. So I can see this recent updates going a lot further, and also very good for sort of new players to sort of show them a little bit more about what's happening. And I think that this screen is going to get a lot added to it as time goes on. Also, they'll be adding Crest for planetary conquest, which is basically a tool for other people to develop sort of third-party programs and applications to show you what's happening with the districts within Dust. So this is something that they're going to throw out to people and say, use this as you will, see what you come up with it. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to do a lot of different things with this, and to show us how planetary conquest is taking place and actively changing the map and how it's changed and the details of it. And I think that's going to be really interesting to see what people do with that, and that's a great thing to get the community involved in the development of what's happening, and to be able to develop their own little apps that relay information about what's happening in the game. So we've also got a bit of detail on some aiming fixes or changes that they're making for 1.4 as well. Now this is really difficult to get right for a game that uses both mouse and keyboard and controller for a console. I'm not 100% sure why they put the keyboard and mouse in. I don't know whether it was because to keep all the EVE players that were talking about the game coming out on a console saying, oh, I'm not using a controller, blah blah blah, and they go, well, you can use a keyboard and mouse if you want to. We're going to make that active. But in most other first-person shooter games that have games on console and also on the PC, they don't migrate those servers together. They're always kept separate, for the main reason that keyboard and mouse does have a massive advantage over a controller. You're welcome to argue with me on that fact if you want to, but it is fact. You can't get away from that. A mouse has such better sensitivity. You can get better mouses with, higher DPI function on them and make them really hypersensitive and in tune to the way that your hand moves. But a controller is very loose. You can't just spin your controller and then do a 360 in a split second like you can with a mouse. So I use a controller on the console and for playing Dust, because I'm sat on my sofa when I play. The whole point of having the console is so that you can sit back and relax and not have to sit at your desk and play. So personally, if I was them, I'd just get rid of the keyboard and mouse. I would have never put it in the first place. I think they were trying to cater to too many people, and they've just created this divide which they have to try and make fair so that they're both equal to each other. And in doing that, aren't they just kind of nerfing them both to a level where they're the same? So they're bringing back in aiming assist, which PC players will sneer at and will always turn off aiming assist because their hand has more control and they don't want it drifting to different places. But on a controller you don't have that kind of control, so the aim assist helps you to focus on your target. So it's going to be quite interesting playing that with a mouse and keyboard as well, to see how that kind of whether it fights against you or whether it is actually a help. So interested to see how that's going to work when it gets implemented. Now here comes the exciting bit, and the bit I've been looking forward to for a while. A little bit of proper new content, which is going to be awesome, I'm sure. They're adding in new maps, amazing. So they're adding in a full 5k terrain with 3 battlegrounds on it. So we're going to get 3 extra maps basically, which is going to be awesome. They're calling them the full map Craters, which I think is quite a good name. Links in with the planets as well. And wondering whether it's going to be a kind of barren landscape with lots of craters knocking around, like kind of moon type place. So that's going to be really exciting to see what they do with that. And on top of that, they're also putting in a large outpost, 2 medium components and 4 small components. Now these are the bits in the level that they can adjust to make each map kind of seem a little bit individual, and drop these components on it, especially for planetary conquest, to give each map a kind of a little side of individuality to it. So I don't know whether these components and outposts that they're putting in are just for this map, or whether they're also going to be spread out to all the other maps as well. So I'm pretty sure they'll go out to all the other maps, so it will, you know, it completely change the other maps that you're playing as well, and add new elements and details to those. Now they've also said that they're releasing new moods, in inverted commas, you couldn't see me do that but I did, to add more flavour and realism to the universe of New Eden. So I don't know whether this is going to be a bit of a kind of weather function, a nighttime, evening, dusk, perhaps. One thing that I loved when I think it came out into, they released the game, they had the Caldari Prime event, and the maps for that just looked awesome. They had a Crash Titan in the background with stuff on fire and, you know, smoke blowing in front of you, and it looked amazing. It was like a completely different game, and then that got taken away because the event was over, and then we were left with how it was before again. And I just hope that they bring that back into the game again, because that Caldari Prime event, it just felt like this is it, this is where Dust should be and where it should be going. That kind of dynamic environment with a massive Titan crashed on the ground, which really linked you with the Eve environment and the spaceships that were out there. Next up, they're going to redo the Battle Finder. This obviously needs a complete overhaul to it, which they are doing. At the moment, all you had was a tab to go to your planetary conquest, the faction warfare, and the 3 little game types that we have to play on. So they're going to make this a bit more intuitive, show you a little bit more about what's going on. I think it's going to be a bit more player friendly, so new people are going to get to see what's going on and what the different battles are. So you're going to have the public contracts, which are obviously just the games that you've got at the moment, which are the kind of ambush, skirmish games. Then the factional contracts, so this is going to make this a little bit more visual and hopefully tie it in with Eve a little bit more, so you can actually see the districts and the planets that you'll be affecting by fighting in these different games that come up. The corporation contracts, which I'm presuming are the planetary conquest games. I was really hoping that they were going to put the corp contracts that we used to have back in, where you could put up a small wager and play against any other team that you wanted to, because that was a great way for people to practice, to get into planetary conquest, and also have grudge matches, and also to set up tournaments and things like that were taking place. Because at the moment, if someone wanted to set up a tournament, the only way that they could do it would be to use districts and somehow work around making that happen. So hopefully they'll bring back the corporation contracts that you can do by just putting a small wager on it, and you can fight anyone that you want to. Hopefully they'll bring that back in some form. I'm not sure whether they're doing it in 1.4. I can't really definitively see that they're going to bring that in at the moment. They do add though that they're going to be updating the Battle Finder and making changes to it and adding stuff in 1.5 as well, so who knows what's going to be tweaked and put in. Also at the bottom there you can see other contracts. Under exceptional circumstances, some special contracts will appear here. Awesome, that's going to be really cool. So that they're going to run little special events and things that will pop up in the other contracts. I know Pyrex has talked about wanting to, if there was a Titan battle that was taking place, suddenly it would pop up in dust that this was taking place, and you could go and fight on the Titan and do things, and whether that could pop up in the other contracts and the special contracts that pop up to really tie the game together would be pretty awesome. So yet to see what that's going to be, but looking forward to it. Also, we got a few other little changes. One is going to be you're going to be able to see more clearly where your RDV deploys your vehicle, so no more getting squashed by cars or tanks dropping on your head, and a few little tweaks here and there to the UI and HUD. They also give a little bit of an inkling to what they're doing in Uprising 1.5, where they talk about rebalancing all of the vehicles and their roles, which I think a lot of people have been wanting to see, and adding features to the squad system. So I don't know what that's going to be, but it sounds quite interesting. So yeah, wow, I seem to have covered quite a lot there. I think there's quite a lot going to be dropping at the beginning of September, and I'm looking forward to getting on it and playing it and seeing the changes that they've made, especially looking forward to the new maps. Content like that is what you want in a game to be added to it, so it's going to be really good to see what they do with that. So yeah, I think I've pretty much covered most of it. I'm sure I've missed quite a few things or other little bits in other blogs or other posts that were made. Please point me in the direction of stuff that I have missed, because obviously I'd want to find out about everything that's happening in the game. But I feel quite excited about the changes that are happening and the communication that CCP have put in to their blogs and posts recently, and I really feel the game slowly starting to move into the right direction and really take on what the consumers have been saying and trying to push it in a direction that's good for the game. So a very positive video this time, and a very positive feeling that I've got. I just hope they keep it up and keep us updated with new levels, new maps, new fittings, suits, weapons, fixes, all those good stuff. Anyway, till next time.